game one of a best of 3 here. And, well, things are going to get very exciting. It is the round of 32. And as such, these players are just a couple of series away from those quarterfinals where they've got a shot at getting one of the final 4 spaces in WCS EU Season 2. Spawning down in the lower right hand position as the red Zerg player, we have Snuffe. And his opponent, to the top right, the blue Protoss player, it is ABomB. So, PvZ, great matchup, Frost, a nice big map. ABomB does have a probe round here pretty quick, got lucky with the scout. Pylon on the low ground but no forge, so should be a Nexus first, coming down from him. May attempt a pylon block here, but to be honest, it's not crazy if that does happen. Interestingly from Snuffe is just adding in that spawning pool at 15 supply, so not super early, but guess what? It's safe, it's steady, and even if a pylon block or something was happening here, you're not going to have too much trouble dealing with it. So early game, ABomB will have the economic advantage here, because the fact he's gone Nexus first, which is now being scouted by Snuffe as he comes in with his Overlord. You can see the pylon on the low ground, see the forge on its way and go, okay, Nexus first, I'm relatively safe. Could potentially go and look to take a third exceptionally fast, but yeah, keeping a close peek. Nothing too crazy going on yet, and really it's just ABomB keeping a really close eye on what Snuffe is doing, because ABomB needs to be reactive if aggression was coming through, although that is quite unlikely. He should be fairly safe once, of course, the forge is finished up and he's got the cannon on its way. So, Nexus first gives the economic edge, which I've already touched on, and that's pretty self-explanatory. If you've got a Nexus first, you're going to be producing obviously more probes than you would do in any other build, and that means that you get the better economy. Snuffe didn't go hatch pool or anything like that, so should be gunning for his third hatch around now. Anywhere between 350 and 420 is generally good if you've gone pool first up against a Nexus first. Otherwise, against a Nexus first, if you really want to be looking to be gunning it really well, you want to be hitting more towards that kind of 3 minutes 50 side as opposed to the 420. If it's a forge first, 420 is kind of fine. So, not really much on ABomb's side yet, and that is due to his opening. He doesn't have a cyber core, so there's nothing that he can really get out other than obviously probes and zealots at the moment. So, can't really predict what he's going to be doing. However, Snuffe, he's got his third hatch down, and likewise, he's just going to be spamming the drone key. Doesn't need anything but a lot of drones up against the Nexus first for quite a while. Should be looking to go into getting his gas at around the 45-ish supply mark. Anywhere between 40 and 50, player preference does play a lot into that. Stargate though, coming down from ABomB the second that cybernetics core's finished. Because of this, he is going to be slightly short in terms of actual units on the ground, but did get a zealot out. That's going to be able to complete the wall off and keep him nice and safe from any big ling place. Meanwhile, on ABomb's side, just waiting to see what comes out of that Stargate. Snuffe hasn't been able to scout it, and it's in an awkward place to try and scout unless he really commits forward with the Overlord, which he may well do, considering he hasn't seen anything with that little flyby. Not really a flyby, more of a float by. ABomB though, Stargate coming out. Could be Phoenix, could be Oracle, potentially could be a Void Ray as well, although a lot of players liking the Phoenix at the moment, and that is what we're getting out of ABomB here. Oracles can do some nice damage. On this map there's a decent amount of dead space so you can get them in there, but in PvZ, I've really seen a lot more success with Phoenix in higher level games, because the Oracle can get some nice damage down, which is obviously great, but the Phoenix, they can keep harassing, they can force back Overlords, get some guaranteed damage through. So if you look at it on kind of your chances of getting some good harassment, the Phoenix may not have the potential to do as much in most games, but they'll be guaranteed to do a decent amount. Whereas if you go for an Oracle, potentially if your opponent really doesn't control well, which is unlikely at this level, you can get a lot of damage down, or else they're just going to get zoned out and you basically got a very expensive scouting unit, which late game is only really useful for Revelation, which against Zerg isn't actually hugely important most of the time. So, ABomB got his +1 coming through and the robotics facility and additional gateways, just ramping up his production and also taking a 3rd base. Not crazy fast, but relatively early. And, well, a couple of links will scout this and they're going to try and get a denial. Phoenix are really bad in trying to stop this, and a cancel could actually be forced since there was only the single Zealot there. The Mothership Core getting some damage done, and the reason Phoenix aren't really able to do much to stop this is because there'd be so many lifts required. Big warping though of Zealots, and as a result, should keep that Nexus up and everything will be fine. And once we do see the Nexus finished, of course the Mothership Core will have enough energy in order to Photon Overcharge. Meanwhile, if we check down here, Phoenix are getting some harassment through, racking up a fair number of worker kills, 4. And while that's not as many as I was saying previously, an Oracle may have been able to get, what you've got to remember is they were contending up against 1 Spore already, and none of the Phoenix died. So they can keep being effective out on the map. A couple more kills here, a couple more kills there. If you take a look at what Snuffe's doing though, he's keeping his pressure on. Keeping these Lings very active and trying to prevent really ABomB from having too much an opportunity to transfer probes or anything along those lines. Phoenix still darting about and found a couple of Overlords actually, and again this is something that an Oracle couldn't be doing, so I think I'm making my case pretty well for why I really like Phoenix, but they're just doing a fantastic job here. In terms of resources lost, Snuffe losing considerably more than that of ABomB. ABomB going to be able to pick up a Queen here, of course 4 Phoenix can kill a Queen in a single lift, but if Phoenix goes down there, arguable if that's worthwhile, probably not to be honest. But still, a Queen's down, that's 1 less inject available. And there's only 2 Queens in total on this map, so there's definitely going to be at least 1 inject missed until a Queen is remade. Infestation Pit on its way out, but this is all seen by ABomB, who's got an Observer just sitting straight in the middle there. ABomB economically is doing well. 62 probes up against 66 drones. He's got a Voidway coming out, as well as extended Thermal Lance for his Colossi, the second of which is on its way through. Chrono Boost consistently coming down on these probes, making sure that there is decent amounts of production on its way. And with the Twilight Council also coming through, the +2 weapon attack can be started. Weapon attack, really important if you are going Colossi up against a Zerg player who's predominantly producing Hydras and Lings, because the armor isn't going to really help you too much, whereas if you get obviously a good amount of additional splash damage down on those Colossi, the Hydras start melting really fast. This hive, it's gonna be for Vipers, and those Abducts really need to be hitting the money if Snuffe is gonna be engaging this army with a lot of Colossi there anytime soon. Meanwhile, Snuffe just sitting with his 4th base now up, transferring a couple of probes across, but it's actually Snuffe who is getting aggressive, trying to see if he can poke in, but gonna get a good read. See, there's a couple of Colossi, a couple of Voidways. The Voidways are really good as well because they're gonna be able to help try and zone out some of the responses to these Colossi. They're going to be able to jump and try and get the Vipers if they get a little bit too close. They're also going to be sitting there, if they were Corruptors, doing an amazing job up against those. So, nice little addition to have in here. And also, up against Roaches. They're fantastic, because Roaches, of course, armored units, and with that prismatic alignment, they're going to do a lot of damage. Snuffe now coming up onto this little cliff, going to be looking to shoot down, takes out that pylon that was granting the vision, so actually these Roaches can start chipping away at a couple of probes. All of ABomb's army though coming to deal with this, and this is all buying time for Snuffe, who wants those Vipers out ready for the Abducts, because he can't engage this army until we see obviously something to deal with all of these Colossi. Storm is also on its way though. And the High Templars serve 2 main purposes up against Zerg in this sort of situation. Firstly, you do have the Storm, which is quite self-explanatory. A lot of damage in an area, looks to take down things like Lings and more importantly the Hydralisks. But it's actually the feedbacks when a Zerg player is going for Vipers that are so critical. Because if you've got a Roach Hydra Viper composition, and you're trying to engage and get those abducts down, a couple of feedbacks just shut it out. And once your Vipers are dead, if they don't get the abducts down, any engagement you're taking that is anywhere near a level fight isn't going to work. You're going to have to retreat. So the feedbacks are actually equally as important as the storms, potentially more important actually. If the feedbacks are good and you don't get the storms, your Colossi are going to be able to do a lot of the work. So it's just pretty solid. And if the feedbacks don't get down and there are some good abducts, at least you've got the storms for some splash anyway. So posturing for an engagement here. Snuffe going to be looking to get those abducts down, going in for the grab. No feedbacks yet. Gets two of those Colossi, but not really close enough. Some really big storms coming down, catching a lot of those Hydras. The Mothership Core will die, so does a Void Ray. And the High Templar, unfortunately, unsupported, becoming Archon. Zealots from the side, but it's the Colossi that are dealing all the damage. Snuffe's army gets annihilated there, losing a significant amount more, losing over double the resources that ABomb's lost this game. And a counterattack is going to be on the cards. And Snuffe, he just GG's there. So like, yeah, that army's coming. I've got 38 roaches on the way. I can't stop it. And that's what it comes down to. If the abducts hit the mark, you win that fight. If you don't, you lose the fight if you keep trying to take it, especially with those storms. Then you lose the game. So ABomb 1-0 up now in this best of 3.